This program is a paid commercial announcement and in no way represents the views of WPHT or its management.
Now on Talk Radio 1210, WPHT, WPHT, HD, WOGL, HD3, Philadelphia. Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
If we don't move in our own direction, we're going to become extinct. In fact, in some cases, we're close to being extinct right now.
Presented by Weinerman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injuries, and powered by the law offices of Pond, Lehocky, Stern, Giordano. Talk, listen, and speak to the region's most influential leaders. It's Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
A good Saturday evening, everybody, and welcome into Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Doherty as we broadcast to you live from Talk Radio 1210 WPHT from the studios down at 4th and Market. And we visit and spend our next hour with you here from inside the living room, as John Doherty used to say, every Saturday night from 7 to 8. And sitting in for John Doherty tonight is Pat Gillespie, returning for week 2, which means you enjoyed being here week 1. Pat, welcome in, sir.
Okay, if that's what it means, yeah. No, I enjoyed myself, and I came back, and I want to send out some prayers to John and Celie, and let him know that all his friends are praying for him.
Well, everybody around the Delaware Valley, J-Doc, and everybody
Absolutely.
Here listening to the program and delivering the radio show tonight, as Pat said, continued prayers for John Doherty and for his wife, Celia.
Absolutely. We're thinking about them at all times and just sending love their way.
We'll
Absolutely.
do our best to deliver a great show for you again tonight. We've got a great lineup of guests. Before we lay everything out, Tone, can I have our drum roll? As you know by now, if you've joined us here at the kitchen table, we begin every Saturday night, J-Doc, with good food. We always start with a good meal tonight. Tonight, I'll let you do the introduction, but we went to John's down on Snyder, hot roast pork tonight.
Well, I'd like to just say this. I pride myself on honesty, but you're making it more difficult for me to lie to my wife all the time and tell her I didn't have.
How was the sandwich?
Incredible.
How fast did you finish the sandwich?
I'm working on beating last week's record, so yeah, I did. It wasn't there very long. That's all I can tell you.
Well, once again, just for the record, I didn't eat the sandwich last week because I'm afraid that if I start, I'll look like Jabba the Hutt. So I'm retired now, so I gotta.
But it looked good though, didn't it, Pat? I mean, I look good going. I mean, I was chowing down.
This is radio, Joe. So yeah, you look good.
I don't mean me, but I appreciate that, Pat.
So a good special thanks to John's Roast Pork for being part of Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Doherty, presented by Weinerman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injuries. We're also powered by Pond, Lehocky, Stern, and Giordano. Unmistakable, the workers' compensation law firm. Ed Mooney, who's the president of the Communications Workers of America, will bring him in. Momentarily. J-Doc, he'll start us off in the A block as we'll bring him into the show.
Anybody that's read the newspaper this week, has seen that the big labor story in the news this week has been the organizing of Santander Bank employees by the communication workers.
I love it. By the way, I love it.
Well, I'm hopeful that Ed is successful with that, and maybe then organized labor, Ed's union, can give Santander a tutorial on the rules and regulations of lending, so they don't get caught up and waste money in that.
Let's bring Ed Moody into the conversation, who joins us here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Ed, a good Saturday evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on, Ed, and we appreciate you taking the time. And so, if you will, give us a little bit of background here on the organizing effort and what's going on with Santander.
Right. First, I also want to send out my prayers to Celia and John and the whole Doherty family for the issues that they're going through, and I hope that has a successful ending here shortly.
Absolutely.
So the organizing of Santander Bank, this actually began, if you remember, in the financial sector in the United States, where the overwhelming majority of those workers are unrepresented. So we were actually approached as CWA by bank workers from around the world, asking us to get more engaged with bank workers in the United States, because the bank workers in the U.S. were dragging down the wages and the working conditions of bank workers around the world in countries like Brazil and Spain and Italy and Europe and also South America. So they initiated with CWA. Yes. And we've had those conversations. So Santander Bank, we were joined by union leaders from around the world. Myself and a representative from our office in Washington had a meeting in Colombia back in December where we sat down and came up with this idea for how we would approach management in the United States about recognition for employees in the U.S. And quite frankly, the representatives from these other countries around the world are shocked at the way that Santander Bank management in the U.S. is reacting to the interest of their workers in joining the union, because in all these other countries, their workers are represented by unions around the world. It's only in the United States where we're facing this backlash against our employees for wanting to join the union here.
So an international company that is union everywhere else is using the union avoidance laws and attitudes in America to prevent their employees from having a fair representation.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Pat, we're joined by unions in Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Brazil, Portugal, Germany, Spain, and Italy in making these demands on not only the management here in the U.S., but in their home countries as well. And, those union members are shocked at the response that they're giving to their workers in the United States.
Well, Ed, is there something that the public can do? There's something that the other unions can do to help you here?
So basically and in the CWA, we've run into this in the past with T-Mobile. T-Mobile is majority owned by Deutsche Telekom. In Germany, they're very pro-worker, but the management in the U.S. acts in accordance, unfortunately, with our laws, and they're allowed to get away with this. And that's what the heads of these companies are saying, that it's your laws in America that are allowing this to happen.
Correct.
So what we need to do immediately is, join together with these bank workers. These are the individuals, Pat, as you mentioned, who are being forced, such as at Wells Fargo, where they were being told to create fictitious accounts to meet unreasonable objectives just to keep their jobs. And at Santander Bank, a similar thing is happening, where they're being encouraged to do these things, and also the lending practices that you mentioned. This is what they're being required to do.
Yeah, and they get a slap on the wrist from
Right.
from the government too. It's amazing, but I'm sure that you're going to be successful, Ed, because I always knew that you were fit for a 3-piece suit. You look like a banker.
Hey, Ed, you've received a lot of political support on this, and a number of senators. Talk about that a little bit.
So, politically, the senators who deal with, especially in the financial regulations of the banking sector, they are extremely interested in why a financial institution would be reacting this way when some of the primary issues, obviously, they're wage and benefit issues, but the other issue in terms of working conditions is these workers want to be honest with their customers. They want to do the right thing. They're not into these deceptive sales practices that they're having pushed on them by their employer, and they want some protection. They want to be able to say, hey, this isn't fair, and I don't want to have to do this to Joe and Jane customer, but yet I know that in order to keep my job, this is what I'm being told to do, right? When we discuss these practices with these other countries' union representatives, they say, wait a second, they can't do that. That isn't right. But here in the U.S., it is right, and they're allowed to do it.
Ed Mooney is joining us here on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. Ed is the vice president of the Communication Workers of America here with us on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Ed, what's the general reaction that you are getting or that the employees are getting from the public? Is it one of support? Is it one of understanding?
Yeah, generally the public is supportive of it and understanding of it, because the public realizes that if the employees have a say in their own workplace, that they're going to get a better product as well, right? When you speak to these customers individually, and each of you guys know yourselves, if you go into a bank and you're pressured into accepting conditions or loans or something like that, it's not really a place you want to be. You want to be free to do the banking you need without the pressure tactics. So the response we've gotten from the public and obviously the rest of labor has been very supportive, and now we just need to continue to push. We need to support these workers. The rest of labor can communicate to these workers that we have your backs and we support you in this struggle against these employers to get a foothold in there and to unionize it so that you can do the right thing on behalf of your customers.
Well, a lot of things is, organized labor. We don't have all the answers, but we certainly do have the answers when it comes to having good benefits and protecting workers' rights to do their job and to make sure that their management does their job and not put the arm on some guy who's trying to buy a car and they talk him into buying something that he can't afford. That's outrageous.
Right.
Well, Ed, if you will, we'd love to, stay in touch with you on this and keep everybody up to date so that we can get some calls to action out there.
Right.
So, if you will, let's revisit this, in the next couple of weeks. Before we go, what is the prognosis here? When do you see something happening?
Well, we don't think it's going to be a short process. It's probably going to be, a drawn-out process. We right here in the Philadelphia area, we have a call center in Reading, Pennsylvania, that your listeners could possibly know people who work there. So we've been working with the representatives in that Reading call center. And also, this doesn't just go for commercial or consumer banking. They are also a huge underwriter for subprime auto loans, Santander Bank. So, if you're in any of those avenues looking for financing, you could come across a Santander Bank worker. And if you can just communicate to them that you support their efforts in joining the union and being able to stand up to their employer for a better workplace and a more secure employment environment for them and also for the customers, we'd appreciate it.
Full support here, Ed, from all of us here at Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Doherty. That's Ed Mooney, the Vice President of Communication Workers of America. Well done, sir. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me. Have a great night.
Take care, Eddie.
Good stuff from Ed Mooney here on the show. We'll continue with that dialogue as the show rolls on towards the top of the hour when we come back after our first commercial break here on a Saturday night on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Al Schmidt will be along. We'll introduce you to Al when we come back.
Talking about what you're talking about. Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
I won't participate on behalf of ourselves here at Local 98 or the Philadelphia Building Trades in conversations that are purely dominated on social issues that don't affect our jobs.
Little Cool in the Gang here. We're celebrating on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Doherty. 1 month in the books.
Wow.
Here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. The ratings are out on the big show on a Saturday night. Special thanks to all of our listeners and our growing listening audience as we enjoyed a 61% increase in listening audience 30 days into the big show. So thrilled and a special thanks to all of our listeners who are part of the broadcast and continue to join us every Saturday night right here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Special thanks to Ed Mooney, the VP of the Vice President of the Communication Workers of America.
And that 61% increase, I just want to be honest, Joe, I don't think that had everything to do with me. I think you and Johnny Doc and Pat Gillespie also. I'm going to be honest, I got to give credit where credit's due. So.
Oh, shucks.
We bring in our next guest. I think it has something to do with all of the guests that we're able to bring here on a Saturday night. We bring in our next guest on the big show here on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Doherty. In for John Doherty tonight, Pat Gillespie, and joining us, City Commissioner Al Schmidt. And we welcome him on to the big show. Al, a good Saturday evening, sir. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I listen to your show every week, and it is such a who's who of Philly politics and labor. I'm just really grateful to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, Al, and we appreciate you taking the time. I know you're at your daughter's recital, so we'll jump right into it. And we appreciate you taking the time.
Of course.
So listen, we want to talk a little bit about Trump's first 100 days. Okay, and first of all, just give us your in 5 minutes or less. Give us your take on how you think it's been going so far.
Well, I'm responsible for running elections in Philadelphia, so we see elections really up close. And Election Day was really involved really high turnout in Philadelphia. We had a lot of Democrats voting for a Republican candidate. We had a lot of Republicans voting for a Democratic candidate. So I think if there's one thing for sure, the first 100 days haven't been predictable at all, I think, for anybody.
Well, Al, I just from a retired guy who who is observing a lot of these things, there's so much that has to be done. And once again, Trump made the same mistake that Obama did with his first initiative to Congress. He went with this repair, repeal, and most of them don't even know what they're talking about with the Affordable Care Act. They went in and they made a big huff and puff, but it was all just a lot of nonsense. It was a big tax break for some wealthy people, but it didn't do anything to help fix health care. And it just put a fear in a lot of people who are dependent on this exchange and whatnot to get health care. However, the big problem that we have in this country is our infrastructure. And when Obama first took over, he inherited an economic catastrophe on the country was on the verge of exploding. And he came in with a stimulus program to the Democrats in Congress. And it was a stimulus program that had a lot of projects attached to it, needed projects. But instead of doing that, the Democrats in Congress, Pelosi and that gang, just talked him out of that, just took that away from him. And he needed them for his other legislative agenda, so he allowed it to happen. The same thing happened here. Trump wanted to get the thing started, wanted to get infrastructure started, but he got talked out of it by other people in Congress. So I just wonder, what can we do to send messages down that we're on the verge of some catastrophic things happening in our transportation?
If there's a single thing Republicans and Democrats and others should be able to agree on in our country, it's the importance of infrastructure. And it's one of those things people only pay attention to when something really tragic happens, which means it's too late. I think this administration, like a lot of administrations, kind of come out of the gate, they with a lot of steam, they think they know what they're doing, and then they stumble right away. And you did see that with the infrastructure bill in the Obama administration in the beginning as well, and the same thing here. And it's a real frustration. I used to work in Washington, D.C. for something called the Government Accountability Office, and we worked for Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate. And it was something that GAO, this kind of good government group, with a lot of support on the Hill, was pushing all the time. And it was just really difficult to get people to invest in infrastructure, which is really what it is, to find the revenue and to invest in needed infrastructure and the family-sustaining jobs that it helps create.
Well, you're so right, and I don't want to be the harbinger of doom and gloom, but our water systems have to be taken care of. Our sewage systems have to be taken care of. Our electric grids have, and we're just whistling past the graveyard. And the other problem is, the longer you wait, the more expensive it is. Now, I get a kick out of these folks who don't want to raise taxes. They don't want to spend any money on infrastructure, but they'd rather, if they're going to spend money, they'd rather spend your money than mine, or than theirs. They'd rather spend my money and everybody. So tax somebody else and give more tax breaks out to people. I think we have to become adult in this country and start, or we're going to see bridges falling in, or we're going to see water systems failing. I mean, that's the state of the condition of our infrastructure right now.
Yeah, I never understand why sometimes there's the divide on this that there is. There could be philosophical differences between all sorts of different programs in Washington, but roads have to get built by somebody. They have to be funded by all of us. They're for all of us. Bridges, just all of those things require us all to invest in, and every one of us uses these things. It's not like a pick and choose kind of thing.
So we can put you down you're all for increasing taxes for our infrastructure.
I'm all for doing whatever it takes to raise money for infrastructure.
Let me ask you a question.
Way to go.
Trump's as a businessman. What do you think his reaction has been to the media and to working for the American public?
Well, he's definitely. This is far above my pay grade in terms of area of expertise. But as far as I can tell, he's really tapped into a lot of concerns that people have and a lot of things that are on people's minds that the regular political establishment, Republican and Democrat, just wasn't willing to confront or wasn't willing to talk about. And I think that's a pretty important thing. And you could really see it in the enthusiasm behind the campaign. Now we're all going to see whether there are actual deeds to follow those words, and whether he follows through with those things or not.
City Commissioner Al Schmidt joining us here on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Doherty. Pat Gillespie in for John tonight. Al, thanks very much for listening.
Get back to that
on a
recital.
Saturday night, and thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
All right, good stuff from Al Schmidt joining us here on Saturday Night Live. Don't forget, coming up at the top of the hour at 8 o'clock, the Dan Loney Show, following us with Saturday Night Live. When we come back, shout-outs from J-Doc. Wayne Miller will join us. We're going to get into, we have the All-Star Labor Classic coming up on Sunday, April 9th. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the apprentice program. All that coming up after the break.
I believe there's room, okay, for the national building trades, the local building trades, to have partnerships with the Trump administration as it pertains to energy, as it pertains to infrastructure, as it pertains to the undocumented worker.
PhillyLabor and John Doherty, Pat Gillespie in for John Doherty this evening, all presented by Weiderman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injuries.
All right, a little shout out to my man Jay Shure out there listening in.
Who's Jay Shure?
He's my man from Shure and Levin. He's they're a big friend of the program.
Good.
I want to give him a little shout out.
Good shout out to Jay.
And also,
Do they sell?
Pat, you want to shout out to Jay?
Wait, do they sell advertising here? Can he buy?
We're working on it.
Buy a hello. If he buys a hello, we can give him a play.
Right.
We're working on it, Pat. You'll be getting a call from Pat Gillespie. So to get connected to Saturday Night Live and Philly Labor Radio, follow us on Twitter at Philly Labor Radio, at My Philly Labor. And of course, go to our website, www.phillylabor.com, to sign up for our email list.
While we're doing shout-outs, I want to do a big, huge, gigantic shout-out to the Temple football team and the Philadelphia Fire Department, who collectively gathered today to distribute smoke alarms, or smoke detectors, rather, in 2 blocks over in North Philadelphia. Awesome. Well done. Great job. Good work by the Temple football team as they get ready for the spring game, the cherry and white game, but they were doing some good work in the community today. The building trades continue to do incredible work, as we've been promoting, and you've been listening to some of the advertising commercials on this very show about April 9th and the All-Star Labor Classic, which is coming up on April 9th. I want to set the table for our next guest. I want to roll this audio clip tone, if we can, right now.
This is the 30th year. In fact, I've actually played in the previous 29 myself. We start off early. This year we're going to be playing on April 9th at Philadelphia University. The doors open at 10 o'clock. We're closing in on $3 million for our partner, Cerebral Palsy. We get the City All-Star Girls versus the Suburban All-Star Girls. We get the City All-Star Boys versus the Suburban All-Star Boys. And then we also get the Labor guys play the media. It's a great game. It's a great atmosphere. And we're lucky enough this year. You got Colin Gillespie, who probably could play in any All-Star game anywhere in America, is going to play in the All-Star Labor Classic. And you got Cosby Roundtree going to play. We actually got 11 people playing in the games, both games, that scored over 1,000 points. So a lot of shots going to go up here on April 9th.
That's John Doherty talking about the big All-Star Labor Classic on April.
Assist.
April 9th, the 30th annual All-Star Labor Classic, and Wayne Miller joins us now here on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Doherty. Wayne, a good Saturday evening, sir.
Hey, Joe, how you doing? Joe, Doc, how you doing? Pat, what's going on?
All right,
How's
Wayne.
it going, Wayne?
So Wayne,
very good.
we're going to hit a couple topics tonight, and we're going to save the best for last with the All-Star Labor Classic, because it's so important to us. We're going to start off a little bit with our apprenticeship conversation, you know, so among the many things that separates unions from non-unions are our apprentice programs, our apprentice training programs. Talk about labor's commitment to our apprentices.
Well, just to give you an example, this past week we had the UA's apprentice contest in Philadelphia. And what that involves is it's the steam fitters, the plumbers, and the sprinkler fitters. And we have our disciplines in each trade, but it starts out at the state level, and if you win your respective trade in the states, then you move to the regionals, and if you win there, you move to the nationals in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's a big deal for us, and that's all part of our training. And what happens is the best apprentice in the highest period is selected each year from each different trade, and then each trade has a contest. So there's 3 sprinkler locals in Pennsylvania. There's probably 4 steam fitter locals in Pennsylvania and 4 plumbing locals. So what happens is that each respective trade goes off against one another, and they do a lot of different things. They have written tests for 3 hours. They go from the written test to for the sprinkler fitters, brazing and soldering, and then after that we do piping projects, and then we bring other people from outside the state of Pennsylvania to judge. So there's nobody can say that somebody gave somebody favoritism.
Well, how'd you do this year, Wayne?
Unfortunately, we didn't win this year. My counterpart in Pittsburgh, local 542, they won. Their kid was really good. It was really tight going down to the last project, and you have to do a piping project. And if you're off like a 1/8 of an inch on this project, you're done. It's like a major issue when you're just a tad off.
Yeah, I think the important message that we have to get out here about this is that these are people who are competing to be the best at their craft. Correct. And there is a esprit de corps that runs through the entire operation, and it's something to behold. And every union in the building trades has these kinds of contests to see who can be the best. And then they bring that to the workplace. When they become journeymen, they bring that to the workplace, and they're productive human beings. And that's why they're able to have a life they can live affordably.
It's a big deal, this contest. It shows you, all the efforts that these guys put in. And it's not only the United States in this contest. It's Canada and Australia. They're all involved in this contest. This is not a small contest, and you send the best guy, and your guy that's representing either the sprinkler fitter, the steam fitter, or plumber. I mean, you get the top-notch guys, and the guys that come in second are probably one of the best pipe fitters that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's so the training is so important to us. It separates us from everything else, and we put a lot of money into it, which we pay for ourselves. We put $1 an hour for every hour our men work in a trade to training. We pay for our own training, which is important.
Wayne, that's what I want to try and get into for just a minute or two here, so everybody understands the power of the apprentice program and what it means. What is an apprentice? What does it actually mean?
Okay, an apprentice is actually a person that is indentured to a committee, and he learns his craft. And you start out, our apprentices in the UA with steam fitters, plumbers, and sprinkler fitters is a 5-year program. And you need the classroom hours and the field experience in order to move to the next period. And
you're going into the program, Wayne, when? Upon high school graduation, or how does it work?
We give out applications, and there's a group that selects the apprentices, and you have to have a high school education.
And there's a veterans preference too, right, Wayne?
We have a veterans preference. We started helmets to hard hat, but we also moved on now to the VIP. Very important people in piping, and what we do is that when you come back from Afghanistan or whatever from the service, you have direct entry into our programs. You don't have to go through the process of the recruitment process. Because of what you've done and did your time in the service, we bring you into our program without any recruitment. But the UA has eight training centers around the country in like Camp Pendleton and things like that. We have a complete welding programs that we put on in the military bases, And when these guys go through that program, when they come back and go back to their states, they go right into a union program.
Now, Wayne,
And,
before we, because we're up against time all the time on the show, it's a pain. But let me just get out. When a person completes their apprenticeship and they go out to the workplace, do they get a pension? Do they get health care? And how much an hour do they make?
Well, the sprinkler fitters are very highly paid. We get our rate of pay is over $53 an hour, and if you're a foreman, it's like $56 or $57 an hour. You have great pensions. Our pensions are very good. They get, I don't mind saying what it is that we get $110 a year credit for every year of service, and then we get that on a monthly basis after we retire.
Fantastic.
We get health care when we retire for you and your family, when you're retired, and at a very low cost of what you pay as you retire, but you get the same benefits as if you were working in the field.
That's to do hard work.
Now, Wayne, talk about the investment that the unions put into their apprentice program. In other words, you talked about $1 an hour. I think we had one of the sheet metal guys on, talked about it being that of an Ivy League education. That's how much is invested in each apprentice's program.
That's correct. The thing is, our apprentice program, we put $1 an hour for every hour work. So we work 1 million hours a year. There's $1 million goes into our apprentice program a year. And I'm a small local. I'm not like the fitters and the plumber. I have 500 men. Okay, right now I have 63 apprentices. We put $1 million into training. Okay, and we don't only just train apprentices. We have journeyman training after you get out because we have to keep our skills up and our certifications for everything we do. When you go through,
Joe, I'd like to suggest, if you would, is devote, bring Wayne and a few other guys in here and devote a series on this so people can understand what it means to be a building tradesman, what it means to be a sprinkler fitter. It would really be enlightening and interesting, because now, Wayne, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Pat. Yeah.
You have to tell the world why for 30 years I've been cut off the basketball team. He's the coach of the team, and he won't let me play.
I try to tell Pat that the game is. We have it April 9th. I told Pat it's the 15th. We don't.
Wayne, let me ask you Wayne, we got to go to a commercial break. Can you stay on hold with us?
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. Wayne Miller joining us here on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. We'll take our final break at the big show. We'll continue our conversation. When we come back with Wayne Miller, we'll find out why Pat Gillespie is always cut, and we'll find out more about the All-Star Labor Classic. Back in a moment.
Original news stories, podcasts, columns from your favorite hosts, and more. Interact 24/7 at Facebook.com/1210WPHT.
I've been coming out of that with them guys, okay? And I was a treasure of the Democratic Party. I've been a loyal Democrat my whole life. But I've told people, and it hasn't, like I told you, it just didn't resonate with this election. If you look at the last few years, I've been telling people we have to become a little bit more individual. We have to be more of our own brand. We have to do a better job at becoming a business.
Back here on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Doherty. Pat Gillespie in for John this evening, presented by Weinerman Pain and Wellness, Serious Doctors for serious injuries on a Saturday night here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
Wayne, before we get into the labor classic, we're talking about the apprentice programs. How does a listener apply for an apprentice program? There's so many unions out there. Tell me how it's done.
Most unions give applications all year round, and then they'll probably have a test either every 6 months.
But every high school counselor knows that. I mean, these aren't secrets. They're out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We send everything out to every appropriate counselor, every group that needs to have that, and let them know that our applications are out.
They send they send apprenticeship people out to career days, and even in junior high and 8th grade stuff. Yeah.
Now,
hey, Wayne, let's get back to why I always get cut off the team.
Yeah, well, it's like this. Joe, Pat can't jump over to Sunday paper. He's horrible.
If you take the funnies out, maybe, and all those damn ads.
But one thing about our All-Star Labor Classic, it's such a great thing, and we're really appreciative of the athletes that come and help us raise the money for the for United Cerebral Palsy. But I don't want to people lose track of what it's all about. This is all about helping children and young adults that have a problem. And that's the whole thing that we focus on. The one major thing is that I'm a firm believer that everyone should be a star once in their life. And we have these children at the very end of our game. We do something that's traditional, and we take one of the children, and the labor team's always losing by 1 point, and then we lift this child up, and the child puts the ball in the basket, and the place goes crazy.
That's true.
If you could see this kid's face that happens, that when this happens, it's worth the whole thing. That's what the All-Star Labor Classic's about. Not playing basketball, okay? About helping these kids and helping people that need help. And the guy sitting next to you, Pat Gillespie, he started this along with Midge Clavin and Sam Glassmeyer. They started this 30 years ago. This is the greatest thing that's going. And we never publicize a lot of things, what we're doing and how much money we make. But again, this is something that it's the building trades and labor. It's our charity. And it means something to every single one of us because, we want to help people. We don't want to hurt people. And this helps people and helps children and helps young adults. And that's what this is all about. So I don't want to lose track of what it is. We have the great players. Yeah, they're great. But, when you do something and you're good and you should give back. And this is probably the first time that these young adults, these athletes, have ever been used, okay? They've always, people were always pandering to them. But now we're using them for a good cause. And that's something that if they get anything out of this, they should learn this. As they go through their careers, they should always give something back.
They definitely do.
I know the people that I work with, Pat Gillespie and John Doherty and Anthony Gallagher and John Kane and Gary Messina and Eddie Loomis, all the guys, and Joey Ashdale and all the guys in the building trade. They help people. That's what we do. Okay, we don't need a pat on the back. We just help people and get things done. And that's why I'm glad to be a part of this. And it's the guy sitting next to you. He started this. His knowledge of this and putting this together and keeping it together and not let anybody get into this program in our All-Star Labor Classic and cause them mischief. Pat don't let that happen. And the thing is that nobody makes money on this. The people that make money are the people that need it, and that's who gets everything.
Hey, Wayne, you still have not explained why you always cut me off the team. I mean, let's get it on the public here. I mean, come on.
We got a big lot of people listening, Wayne.
Them guys from St. Tommy Moore never won it.
Now we're getting it.
But by the way, just so you have a handle, almost $3 million now. Raised as part of the All-Star Labor Classic. The game this year will be Sunday, April 9th. It will be at Philadelphia University. Tickets are free. Admission is free at the door. It's free parking. And as you heard John Doherty on the audio clip when Wayne first joined us at the bottom of the hour, the very best high school athletes, girls and boys, join and come together to compete in this event.
It is something to see, and quite honestly, I've been saying this for years, and I like to put it this way: it's all these kids with these special skills, these special gifts that the Creator has given them. They're sharing them with people who have special needs, and it's just a fabulous event. And you don't see a lot of assists in the boys' game. But you see some guys moving, boy. It is phenomenal to see. Now the girls, when they play, they set picks, they run plays. I mean, they play a real solid. But I'm noticing now the last few years they're running and gunning. So, it's a sight to see.
Listen, Wayne.
Well, we have players there. You have John Doherty. You need 2 balls in the game, and Doherty shoot. Okay, and Sam Staten Jr.
Yeah.
Oh, he's another gunner.
Yeah, it's like
you should see him.
Wayne, listen, we can't thank you enough, pal. You're awesome.
All right.
We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you at the Classic in a couple weeks.
All right, it's good.
Okay, let me get back to my grandson's baseball game. See you
All
guys
right.
later.
Take care,
Thanks,
Wayne.
Wayne.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Good stuff from Wayne Miller. Again, the All-Star Labor Classic. The 30th annual All-Star Labor Classic will be Sunday, April 9th. It'll get underway at about 11 o'clock. It's up at Philadelphia University. The Labor team will play the media, followed by the girls' game, and then followed by the boys' game. Thanks to all of our listeners. Before we go, we have about a minute. We actually have 2 minutes, J-Doc, so I'll give you 40 seconds if you want to kind of recap, and then we'll save 45 seconds for Pat sitting in the big chair.
Listen, just want to shout out to Bill Ross, Howard Gensler, and the other individuals on the negotiating team for the Newspaper Guild who got themselves a tentative agreement for their members. Good job done.
And who was your earlier shout out?
Jay Shore from Shore and Levin.
I like Sam Pond. Sam Pond's paying the note, isn't he?
We are powered by Pond, Lahaka, Stern,
and the Payne guy. You got to mention him a couple of times.
That's right. Weineman Pain and Wellness, rocking it out.
All right, good stuff. Thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in and being with us again here on another Saturday night. And as Pat Gillespie mentioned when he first came on to the big show, we continue to send our prayers out to John Doherty. That's going to do it for the big show today. On behalf of Pat Gillespie, Pat, thank you very much. On behalf of J-Doc, Frank Keel, and of course Tony behind the glass, and of course our host John Doherty. I'm Joe Krause. We'll see you next time.
This program is a paid commercial announcement and in no way represents the views of WPHT or its management.